Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing day. Angela Blaha here, Leonard Sheehan. This is for you, answering your question about conscious relationships. So, what those are their focus is based on purpose. Their relationships come together in personal and collective growth within the relationship, and the main purpose is the growth. So they are better world purpose kind of relationships. And they are not like the old kinds of relationships where there was an attachment to an outcome. Like in the past, if you got married, you stayed married, right? Like that was you were attached more to the outcome than you were to the relationship and any growth that the relationship might have. These very conscious relationships are very connected, not to necessarily an outcome, but to growth, which technically could be considered an outcome. But it's all about growth within the relationship, growth personally, and how to make the world a better place. Um, these are, other than that, they don't really have any attachments. Now, these are very open relationships, meaning that their commitment is to the growth, and that rather than making the relationship work, they're all about creating compassion, joy, feelings, like letting people be, very truthful within the relationship. These relationships can be very, very invigorating. Um, they can keep the relationship alive because of the commitment to growth rather than the commitment to staying married or being together. So there's great excitement around these relationships. Now, in these relationships, there is common knowledge that everyone has wounds from the past, no matter how big or small they are, that everyone has wounds, and that these relationships, if they are truly growth oriented, will spark or trigger those wounds to surface so that they can be healed. And part of growth is our ability to heal, right? So the difference between conscious relationships and um, the difference between these conscious relationships is that they hold this common factor, that there is no blame or shame or guilt within these relationships, and that these types of relationships instead have clear knowing that these old wounds are just patterns and old belief systems. And in order to have growth be the focus, like these wounds need to be healed within the relationship. So there's a perception of using or being mirrors for each other within the relationship. But if the true energy in the relationship is about growth, then you don't necessarily mirror each other, although that could be the form of triggering each other. These in these relationships, like they are very willing to look at these belief systems and old patterns, old karmic ties, um, old ways of being, in because again, in order to grow, which is part of the excitement. I'm going to be honest here. It's part of the excitement about the relationship is, how much can we heal and how much can we grow personally and together. Like these relationships have great personal responsibility. I mean, there is deep personal responsibility for expansion, for growth, for creating new patterns of relationships for the future, not just for your future, but for the future of humanity. So, in order to make these work, both people need to be open to their emotions. They need to be open to different kinds of relationships. They need to be open to being triggered and to trigger others. And they also need to be open to processing. Like these relationships are very process oriented, and being able to express your feelings is one of the top priorities in these relationships. These are not easy relationships because we're not, especially if you came from belief systems where, the outcome is more important than the process or the growth within the process. These relationships can be very stressful. There's lots of belief systems that need to change in order to create success in these relationships. And I'm not talking about long-term success, I'm talking about growth success. Because there are certain things that you have to be willing to do in order to make these successful. In order to make your own personal growth successful, you have to be willing to do I wrote down 5 things. So the first thing is to be honest to yourself, about yourself. Like when you have an emotion, you have to be able to be honest about what you're experiencing. And you have to be able to express it. So if you have no idea about your emotions and you're not ever honest about your emotions, this personal growth and growth within a relationship can be a bit strenuous. Forgiveness, like you have to be able to forgive yourself for having old patterns, for having belief systems, for, whatever it is. Acceptance, like you have to be willing to accept who you are and who they are and what the relationship is. The fourth thing is to be present. Like you have to be a really good listener in these kinds of relationships, and you have to be able to respond appropriately according to how you are, not according to how they are. That's where honesty comes in and acceptance comes in. Like in presence, when we are fully present with people, we listen to what they have to say. We're not trained listeners. A good portion of us don't listen at all. The fifth thing is seeing love as a journey rather than a destination. Being love. Like that's one of the main focuses that everyone is shifting into, is how do we be love? Not just act upon love or say words that are loving. We have to actually be it. These relationships are based in being compassion, being angry, being love, being honest, being emotional, being whatever it is, right? Like being a belief system. You have to actually say that you believe in that. And the reasons why you believe in it and why it's working for you right now. Like being is the number one component, because that's how personal and relationship growth happens. And that's what conscious relationships are really all about, are how do we be in this relationship? How do I add or take away from this relationship, and being honest about that? So conscious relationships are really about being conscious in the relationship, and about who you are, and about really what you really want, dream, and desire. So I hope that this helps. Conscious relationships are very powerful, and they are very, like, they're the wave of the new future. So yeah, they can be very exciting and very fun, but they can be extremely hard and difficult, just like any relationship, old or new relationship. The difference between an old relationship is that you're committed to the outcome, and in conscious relationships, you're committed to your own growth and the growth of the relationship. So let me know if you have questions. Ask them in the thread. I will get to them as soon as I can. And thanks, Leonard, for asking such an amazing question. See you later.